Choose a chair and discover the hidden self you've been avoiding. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Today on Spiritual Wisdom, I invite you to pause for a moment and choose a chair. Yes, just a chair. And watch how that simple choice reveals the hidden part of yourself you've been avoiding. Which one speaks to you? Which one pulls you closer without explanation? As you watch this video, I encourage you to reflect deeply and comment below. What did your choice uncover about you? Your intuition is always whispering truths about your inner world, truths that can guide your personal growth, emotional healing, and everyday happiness. Let's explore them together. 1. The minimalist chair. The hermit, contemplator archetype. When your attention is drawn to the minimalist chair, it reveals the hermit or contemplator archetype within you, an energy shaped by your deep craving for peace, simplicity, and emotional stability. This attraction is never accidental. It comes from a soul that has learned through experience that quiet is not just pleasant, but necessary. Often, those who choose this chair grew up in environments marked by unpredictability, emotional suppression, or subtle chaos, where the loudest storms were the ones no one talked about. In those early years, silence became your refuge, order became your safety, and self-reliance became the only reliable ground beneath your feet. These patterns didn't form overnight. They were shaped by years of learning how to stay calm when the world around you wasn't, how to minimize your presence to avoid conflict, and how to build inner stability when external stability was never guaranteed. From this foundation, the hermit archetype emerged with remarkable strengths, deep introspection, emotional sensitivity, and a natural ability to perceive the truths that others overlook. You carry a clarity that comes from observing rather than reacting, from understanding rather than absorbing, and from sitting with your emotions long enough to hear what they are trying to tell you. This is a gift of spirituality that reveals a soul already walking the path of spiritual awakening, one who finds meaning in stillness and wisdom in simplicity. The minimalist chair symbolizes your quiet power, the part of you that knows inner peace is not something found, but something built, choice by choice, breath by breath, moment by moment. But even this gentle archetype carries a shadow. The same instinct that protects you can also isolate you. Your love of solitude can slowly become emotional distance. Your desire for calm can turn into a fear of intensity. And your deep need for stability can make you avoid situations where you cannot predict the outcome or control the emotional temperature. This is where the hermit's shadow whispers its subtle question. Are you truly choosing peace? Or are you using peace as a way to hide from chaos, both the chaos of others and the unresolved chaos within yourself? Carl Jung often reminded us that the parts of ourselves we avoid become the very things that silently rule us, and this chair invites you to bring those hidden fears into the light. The minimalist chair does not expose a flaw. It reveals a crossroads. It shows you where your strength meets your vulnerability, where your clarity meets your hesitation, and where your longing for stillness meets your fear of emotional unpredictability. The chair asks you to look at your inner world with honesty. Are you preserving your peace or protecting yourself from wounds you have not yet addressed? Are you resting or retreating? Are you choosing calm or avoiding intensity because intensity once hurt you? With this awareness, the hermit archetype becomes not a place to hide, but a place to grow. It invites you to expand your emotional capacity, to trust your resilience, and to allow yourself to experience depth without fear of losing control. It reminds you that true stability doesn't come from avoiding life's storms, but from strengthening the inner foundation that allows you to move through them with grace. And in this way, the minimalist chair becomes a symbol not only of who you have been, but of the powerful and spiritually awakening version of yourself you are becoming. 2. The classic chair, the guardian, traditionalist archetype. Choosing the classic chair places you in the world of the guardian, the traditionalist archetype, a reflection of someone who naturally seeks structure, order, logic, and timeless values, and in doing so, reveals a deep part of your spiritual development, showing how your soul craves stability and coherence. You are someone who dislikes chaos, deception, inconsistency, and emotional ambiguity. And this aversion is not merely preference, but a sign of your inner desire for clarity and moral alignment, a reflection of your commitment to living with responsibility and integrity. Perhaps your upbringing involved strict rules or lacked stability, leaving you with a need to create order in your own life. This effort to establish predictability demonstrates both wisdom and resilience, qualities that others admire and trust as they sense your steady presence and your ability to navigate life with moral clarity and depth. Yet every strength carries a shadow. Your love of structure can sometimes turn into control issues, and your fear of unpredictability may prevent you from embracing experiences that could expand your soul. Fear of vulnerability can make you cautious in relationships and hesitant in situations where openness is required. And this tension between safety and growth becomes a pivotal point in your spiritual development. The hidden question you must face: do your rules protect you, or do they imprison you? Is a profound prompt for self-reflection, asking you to examine whether the boundaries you set serve your growth or limit it. Recognizing this allows you to approach your life with both discipline and flexibility, balancing responsibility with the courage to embrace uncertainty. Your path demonstrates that the guardian's gifts of responsibility, moral clarity, wisdom, and depth are meant to guide not only yourself, but also others, showing the way through your steady example, while your shadow offers lessons in surrender and trust. The challenge is to allow your rules and principles to be tools of empowerment, not barriers to your own freedom, and to integrate discipline with compassion and openness. In doing so, you align your choices with a higher sense of purpose, using structure as a foundation for spiritual growth rather than as a cage. This integration nurtures both your inner strength and your capacity for authentic connection, offering a pathway toward a life where clarity, stability, and moral integrity coexist with adaptability, vulnerability, and deeper spiritual awareness. 3. The cozy chair, the sovereign, protector archetype. Choosing the cozy chair reveals a truth about you that goes deeper than preference or comfort, because this choice speaks directly to your longing for safety, recognition, belonging, and emotional rest. It echoes the quiet part of you that has always wanted a place where you could finally put down your guard and feel held without conditions. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And this is exactly why this chair calls to you. It mirrors the emotional world you've learned to protect, the wounds of being rejected, dismissed, or loved only when you were convenient, obedient, or impressive. These wounds shaped you into someone strong on the outside and sensitive on the inside, someone who built inner strength, not because life was gentle, but because you had to survive moments when being soft felt dangerous. You learned resilience the hard way. You learned dignity through silence. You built inner authority through years of holding yourself together while no one noticed how much effort it took. This cozy chair represents that inner sovereign, the protector archetype, noble, grounded, self-contained, and always ready to stand alone if necessary. Yet spiritual wisdom teaches that strength born from pain often comes with a hidden cost, because the same armor that once protected you later becomes the very barrier that keeps love, support, and connection at a distance. This is where your shadow quietly lives. When you choose the cozy chair, you're also choosing control of your space, your feelings, your boundaries, and even your vulnerability. You hold yourself so tightly that sometimes you forget what it feels like to be held by someone else. Emotional exhaustion follows you like a shadow, not because you are weak, but because you've been carrying everything alone for too long. And without realizing it, you may begin to isolate yourself, not out of bitterness, but out of habit. You tell yourself that solitude is peace, yet a deeper part of you whispers that maybe solitude has become a shield that hides your longing for connection. This is why the cozy chair does not simply ask you who you are. It asks you a question you've avoided. Do you want comfort or acceptance, power or connection, self-protection or emotional intimacy? It asks whether you are clinging to strength because you truly want it, or because you fear what might happen if you finally let yourself soften. You have spent years trying to be the one who holds everything together, the one who never breaks, the one who doesn't need help. But as Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. And the moment you begin to honor your need for connection, the universe sends you people who want the real you, not the armored you, not the perfect you, not the untouchable you. The cozy chair shows you that your greatest transformation begins when you allow yourself to be both strong and open, both sovereign and receptive, both powerful and emotionally honest. Because true strength is not the refusal to feel, it is the courage to let yourself be seen fully and without fear. 4. The expressive chair, the eternal child, creator archetype. When you are drawn to the expressive chair, you are revealing a part of yourself that has always longed to breathe freely, because at your core, you crave freedom, creativity, authenticity, and emotional expression in a world that has often told you to quiet down, shrink yourself, or soften your colors. This choice reflects the eternal child and creator archetype within you, the inner spark that still believes life is meant to be felt, explored, and expressed with vivid honesty, acting as a reminder that your soul speaks through art, emotion, movement, and imagination. You've likely been judged as too much, too emotional, too colorful, or too dramatic. Yet the fact that you still gravitate toward this expressive seat shows a truth you can't deny. A piece of you refuses to let your light be dimmed, no matter how many times others tried to tame the beauty of your wild spirit. This archetype gives you a strength that many people secretly envy. Your originality, your inner magic, your emotional vibrancy, your ability to turn ordinary moments into meaning, and your natural gift for sensing the emotional energy beneath the surface, making you someone who can transform pain into poetry and silence into creativity. And even though this sensitivity is part of your power, it is also part of your spiritual awakening, because it teaches you to interpret the world not just through logic, but through intuition, symbolism, and the subtle language of the heart. Yet every strength carries a shadow, and the shadow of this expressive soul is the fear that silence might expose wounds you've spent years covering with colors, jokes, creativity, or constant movement. You may use art or emotional performance as a shield, filling your days with noise so you don't have to feel the ache of loneliness, rejection, or the fear of being unseen. There is a part of you that worries that if you ever stop shining so brightly, people might stop noticing you altogether, not because you want attention, but because you long for recognition, the kind that sees your soul, not just your expression. This is where the powerful, hidden question of the expressive chair emerges and asks you to look inward. Is your expression an act of self-love, or is it a shield you built to survive? If it is rooted in love, it nourishes you. It aligns with your truth. It feels like a natural extension of who you are. Your creativity becomes a sanctuary rather than a mask, and your emotions flow without overwhelming your identity. But when expression becomes armor, it drains you, leaving you restless, anxious, or endlessly performing a version of yourself that is loud enough to hide the quieter parts you fear will be ignored. And this is where your spirituality guides you deeper, urging you to recognize that the path to spiritual awakening is not about dimming your color or disciplining your emotional nature, but about letting your expression come from wholeness instead of wounds, and allowing yourself to be seen even in your softness, your pauses, your uncertainties. This chair reminds you that your inner child and creator archetype do not want you to disappear into performance. They want you to embrace the full spectrum of who you are, especially when no one is watching. It teaches you that you do not have to shout to be heard, nor exaggerate to be valued, nor entertain to be loved. The expressive chair whispers that your emotions are sacred, your creativity is medicine, and your authenticity is your true power, but only when it rises from self-acceptance rather than self-protection. And the moment you begin to honor your expression as a form of self-love rather than survival, you step into a deeper level of spiritual awakening, where your presence becomes real, your creativity becomes healing, and your soul finally feels seen, even in the quietest room. 5. The resistant chair, the warrior, hermit archetype. The resistant chair reflects the essence of the warrior hermit archetype, revealing a part of you shaped by strength, independence, endurance, and an instinctive need for protection. You are someone who has learned to stand firmly on your own ground, often carrying the weight of your life without asking for help, because past experiences taught you that trust is not something to give freely. You understand, perhaps better than most, that people can disappoint, promises can break, and vulnerability can sometimes lead to wounds that take years to heal. So you built emotional armor quietly, steadily, and with purpose, and over time, this armor became both your shield and your identity, allowing you to rely only on yourself and to survive storms without collapsing. Yet beneath this strength lies a deeper truth. The same armor that protects you also creates distance, turning connection into something that feels risky and unfamiliar. Even when your resilience, discipline, and survival instincts help you move through life with admirable power, there is a part of you that feels the subtle pull of emotional isolation, a sense that staying behind your walls keeps you safe, but also keeps you lonely in ways you rarely speak about. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And your choice of this chair reveals an unconscious belief that guarding your heart is the only way to avoid pain. But as you grow in spirituality and spiritual development, you begin to sense that true strength is not about constant defense. It is about knowing when openness is safe, when softness is wise, and when letting someone in does not mean losing control. This archetype invites you to question whether your armor is still serving you, or quietly limiting what your soul truly longs for. You may notice moments when you crave connection, yet instinctively pull back, or times when someone offers comfort, but you dismiss it because receiving care feels unfamiliar. This inner conflict does not mean you are broken. It means you have outgrown the version of yourself that is needed to survive at all costs. Your spirit is now asking you to grow through balance to honor your inner warrior, while allowing your inner human to breathe, feel, and connect. The hidden question, is your armor protecting you or keeping love out, becomes the doorway to your transformation. If you look closely, you will see that your strength is already proven. What your heart needs now is permission to rest, to trust selectively, and to experience connection without fear. Let this awareness guide you forward so that the walls you once built for survival can evolve into boundaries that protect without imprisoning, allowing you to remain powerful without staying alone. 6. Your choice is a message from the unconscious. When you choose a chair in this Carl Jung test, you are having a quiet conversation with your unconscious. Because Jung taught that symbols expose hidden inner truths, and your chair becomes a symbol, a message, and a mirror reflecting the parts of you that normally stay in the dark. The chair you feel drawn to is never random. It speaks to your deepest needs that you rarely admit, your unhealed wounds you try to work around, your psychological defenses that silently protect you, and the archetype shaping your life from beneath the surface. Whether you are pulled towards something soft and comforting, something structured and powerful, something artistic and expressive, or something simple and grounding, that attraction reveals what your inner world longs for right now. Because your unconscious does not speak through logic, it speaks through instinct, imagery, and preference. And none of the choices are good or bad, because each one represents a different doorway into your shadow, your strength, and your true self. Your shadow isn't the dark side people fear. It's simply the parts of you you've pushed away, your sensitivity, your anger, your creativity, your authority, your hidden potential, and these qualities show up in symbolic form when you let your guard down. Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And this test becomes a soft way to bring those unconscious forces into the light without judgment. Maybe your chair reveals that you crave safety and emotional warmth after years of being the strong one. Maybe it exposes how tired you are of pleasing others and how deeply you yearn to take up space. Maybe it shows your desire for structure, stability, and control after a long season of uncertainty. Or maybe it reflects a need for beauty, freedom, and self-expression that you've been suppressing to fit into someone else's expectations. At the same time, your chair exposes the defenses you've built, whether you disappear when things get hard, smooth things over to keep the peace, overperform to earn love, or build walls so no one can hurt you again. And seeing these patterns is where spiritual wisdom begins. In moments like this, self-discovery feels less like a battle and more like a gentle unfolding, because instead of blaming yourself, you begin to observe yourself with honesty and softness. This symbolic choice becomes a gateway into spiritual awakening, helping you understand why you repeat certain patterns, why certain people trigger you, and why you sometimes feel disconnected from your true self. When seen through Jung's teachings, the chair becomes a guide, inviting you to sit more honestly in your own life, to rest where you never allowed yourself to rest, to claim power you once abandoned, to nurture needs you once ignored, and to meet the parts of yourself you have been avoiding with compassion and curiosity. Your choice doesn't define you, it reveals you. And the moment you are willing to look into that mirror, you begin to shift from living unconsciously to living intentionally. You stop mistaking old patterns for destiny and start recognizing them as stories you now have the power to rewrite. In the end, the chair you chose is more than a preference. It is a quiet reflection of your hidden self, the emotions you suppress, and the parts of your psyche that are ready to be acknowledged. Carl Jung taught us that symbols speak when words cannot, and today, your intuition has revealed a truth your mind may have overlooked. If this message helped you understand yourself more deeply, please like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming insights. Your journey of self-discovery is just beginning. 10 signs you're gifted, and if you don't know it, it ruins your life. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Welcome back to Spiritual Wisdom. Today, we're diving into 10 powerful signs. You're gifted signs that can shape your life in extraordinary ways if you finally recognize them. So many people walk through life unaware of their deeper abilities, their intuition, their emotional depth, or the unique inner vision that sets them apart. But once you understand these signs, you stop feeling different in a painful way and start seeing yourself through the lens of purpose, potential, and personal power. As you listen, ask yourself, which of these signs describe me? And before we begin, share in the comments. Which gift have you recently discovered about yourself? Your insights may inspire someone else on their journey of self-understanding. 1. You think in layers, not lines. You think in layers, not lines. And this is why your mind often feels different from everyone around you, as if it was designed to move vertically and horizontally at the same time, connecting meanings, patterns, and outcomes that others cannot see. Your thoughts unfold like ripples, expanding in every direction, where one idea triggers another insight, and that insight reveals an even deeper truth. This is not a skill you learned. It is an innate gift that has been with you since childhood, and it becomes especially powerful as you move further along your spiritual awakening. While most people process life step by step, you naturally move through it like a multi-dimensional map, noticing layers of energy, emotional cues, and hidden motives that others miss completely. In the journey of spirituality, this layered perception becomes a kind of inner compass guiding you toward truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. The challenge is that living in a surface-level world often pressures you to dull your own depth. You may have learned to pretend you don't notice certain patterns because others think you're reading too much into things. You may have hesitated to share your insights because people around you couldn't keep up with the speed or complexity of your thoughts. Over time, this can make you second-guess yourself, wondering whether you are overthinking, when in reality, you are simply seeing more than most people can process. Carl Jung often emphasized that the deeper layers of the psyche reveal themselves only to those who are willing to observe. And your layered thinking is one of the strongest signs that your mind is built for inner clarity, even if others misunderstand it. When someone tells you a story, you don't just hear words. You hear the emotional truth behind those words, the subtle inconsistencies, the unresolved wounds, and the future consequences waiting beneath the surface. You can sense when someone is conflicted even before they admit it to themselves, and you often predict how situations will unfold long before they happen. This ability makes you someone who understands the world through depth instead of appearance. But because this way of thinking is natural to you, you might assume it is natural for everyone else too, until you realize they are only seeing the top layer while you are quietly navigating the deeper 5 or 10 beneath it. This depth may cause you to feel disconnected at times, as if your mind is moving on a different frequency. Gifted thinkers often describe this inner experience as mentally layered, not chaotic, but richly structured, like several transparent sheets stacked on top of one another, each containing a different dimension of insight. You see emotional patterns inside conversations, social patterns inside groups, and energetic patterns inside relationships. You notice contradictions people don't recognize in themselves and sense truths they have not yet faced. This is not sensitivity. This is awareness of a higher order of perception that becomes sharper as your spirituality deepens. Yet this gift can become overwhelming when you lack people who understand it. You may hold back your clarity because you fear judgment, or because explaining your thoughts feels exhausting. You may shrink your brilliance because you worry that others will misinterpret your depth as intensity. But your layered thinking is not a burden. It is a sign of inner intelligence, perception, and spiritual alignment. It is the mind of someone who is awakening, someone who was never meant to live on the surface of life, but to see through it. And the moment you stop questioning this part of yourself and start honoring it, everything from your relationships to your choices begins to shift toward authenticity and truth. If you feel this message speaks directly to your soul, repeat after me. I am gifted with depth and divine insight. I trust my layered mind to guide me toward my true purpose. 2. Your inner world feels more real than the outer one. Your inner world feels more real than the outer one when your mind becomes a vivid sanctuary filled with thoughts, insights, and emotions that carry more truth than the conversations or environments around you. This rich internal landscape often becomes the place where your spirituality deepens and your spiritual development unfolds, because you experience life not only with your senses, but also with your intuition, your symbolic thinking, and the quiet voice that speaks from within. You may notice that while others move through life reacting to whatever is in front of them, you navigate your days through layers of meaning, reflection, and inner clarity. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens," reminding you that the more time you spend understanding your own inner universe, the more awake you truly become. Yet this awakening often creates a gap between you and the external world. When your thoughts are textured and your emotions are profound, normal social settings can feel flat, shallow, or disconnected, and you might start to feel invisible, as if the depth you carry inside has no place to land outside. In a room full of people, you may hear conversations buzzing around you, but still feel alone, not because you dislike people, but because the topics you crave, truth, purpose, meaning, growth, rarely appear in casual dialogue. This mismatch can make you wonder whether you are the strange one, when in reality, you are simply operating from a deeper level of awareness that most people never reach. Over time, the outer world may begin to feel like a faint echo compared to the richness of your inner experience. You may prefer solitude not out of avoidance, but because it is in solitude that your intuition becomes louder, your insights become clearer, and your sense of identity becomes stronger, guiding you toward people and experiences that align with your soul. This sensitivity makes you more aware of energy, intention, and emotional undercurrents. Because you process life so deeply, chaotic, loud, or superficial environments feel draining or meaningless, pushing you to retreat inward, where everything feels more aligned, more honest, and more you. And although this depth can sometimes bring moments of confusion or isolation, it is also the space where your greatest strengths are formed. Your creativity, your discernment, your emotional intelligence, and your spiritual maturity. The more you trust this inner world, the more you begin to reshape your outer world so it reflects your inner truth instead of contradicting it. This is the quiet journey of someone who is gifted on the inside. You live in a reality that most people cannot see. But this invisible reality holds your purpose, your growth, and your power. When you stop viewing your depth as a burden and start recognizing it as the key to who you were meant to be, your life begins to transform from the inside out. 3. You feel the weight of life more than others realize. You feel the weight of life more deeply than others realize because you do not simply experience emotions. You translate them, absorb them, and sense the layers beneath them. You notice the joy people try to hide, the sadness they refuse to name, the conflict they pretend isn't there. And this emotional depth is not exaggeration, but a sign of an inner intelligence that most people never develop. Carl Jung once said, "There is no light without shadow." And this truth lives inside you because your emotional sensitivity is the very thing that allows you to understand life on a level others cannot reach. Yet instead of being recognized as a strength, your depth is often dismissed, minimized, or misunderstood. People tell you that you are being dramatic, that you're thinking too much, that you're reading too far into things, And over time, those words teach you to silence yourself, to shrink, to hide the parts of you that feel too deeply, until the suppression turns into anxiety, emotional exhaustion, or self-doubt. When you walk into a room and feel its atmosphere before anyone speaks, that is not weakness, it is perception. When you sense someone's sadness beneath their smile or tension behind their calm voice, you aren't imagining anything. You are picking up the emotional truth that others overlook. You feel joy more intensely, heartbreak more sharply, and love more fully because you live through the layers, not just the surface. This sensitivity is a sign of spiritual awakening, a reminder that your soul was designed to perceive subtlety and depth. Spiritual wisdom teaches that emotions are messengers, guiding you back to yourself, and the fact that you feel so deeply means your inner compass is alive and alert. But you may have spent years trying to turn that compass off just to fit in with people who were not equipped to understand you. The world often rewards emotional detachment and calls it strength, while criticizing emotional depth and calling it instability. Because of this, you may have learned to hide your reactions, to act like things don't affect you, to pretend that you're fine even when your intuition is screaming inside you. This creates an internal split between what you feel and what you show, and that split becomes heavy over time, leaving you confused, drained, or overwhelmed. But nothing is wrong with you. You are simply living with a level of emotional awareness that others do not possess. You are not too much. You are simply tuned into the truth. You are not overly sensitive. You are awake. You are not imagining things. You are perceiving reality through a deeper, more conscious lens, just as Carl Jung described in his work on the intuitive and feeling types. Once you stop apologizing for your depth and start honoring it, everything changes. The weight you feel becomes understanding. The pain becomes clarity. The sensitivity becomes power. And the very emotions you once tried to suppress reveal themselves as the signs of a gifted soul navigating a world that has not yet learned how to feel as deeply as you do. Comment below, "I carry this depth with grace," if you know your sensitivity is your greatest gift and you're ready to embrace it fully. 4. You carry a capacity for depth that others can't follow. You carry a capacity for depth that others cannot follow. And this depth shapes the entire way you experience life, because your mind naturally moves beyond the surface and into the hidden layers of people, emotions, and meaning, sensing things that others overlook or avoid. You do not simply hear words, you feel the emotional vibrations beneath them, the unspoken wounds, the subtle shifts in tone, the places where someone's soul is reaching out, but their mind is holding back. And while this ability is a powerful sign of emotional intelligence and early spiritual awakening, it also becomes the very reason you often feel isolated. You give your full presence in every conversation, diving into sincerity, truth, and vulnerability. Yet many people are only comfortable living at the surface, where nothing is too intense, too honest, or too real. This mismatch creates a quiet, invisible distance, one that you sense but seldom explain, because part of you longs to be understood fully, while another part knows that few are willing or ready to meet you in the emotional and spiritual depth where you naturally exist. You begin to dim yourself to maintain connection, softening your intensity, hiding the insights you instantly perceive, pretending you do not notice the emotional truth behind someone's behavior. And although this helps you fit in, it slowly chips away at your authenticity. Each time you silence your inner knowing, your spirit contracts, and the distance between who you are and who you perform becomes painfully wider. This is not because something is wrong with you, but because your depth reveals what others are afraid to face: their own emotions, their own shadows, their own unprocessed experiences. And instead of embracing your insight, they retreat, leaving you with the impression that you are too much, when in reality, you are simply more attuned, more awake, and more spiritually aware than they are prepared to handle. Your gift allows you to see the deeper motives, patterns, and emotional landscapes in people long before they recognize them. And while this can feel overwhelming, it is actually a sign of heightened intuition and expanded consciousness. You sense truths that others are still unconscious of. You notice the tension someone hides behind a smile, and you feel the heaviness someone carries even when they claim to be fine. This makes you both magnetic and intimidating. People crave the way you understand them without explanation, yet they fear how clearly you see beyond their masks. You stand at the intersection between connection and confrontation, not because you cause conflict, but because your depth naturally exposes what is real. With time, you learn that not everyone can join you where you are. Not everyone is ready for the level of emotional honesty, spiritual presence, and inner truth that comes naturally to you. You realize that your depth is not meant to be diluted to keep others comfortable, because doing so only leaves you feeling spiritually disconnected from yourself. Your depth is a compass pointing you toward relationships that honor meaning over performance, truth over appearances, soul over ego. And as Carl Jung taught, the soul speaks in a language of depth, not surface, guiding you toward the people who can meet you in the emotional, psychological, and spiritual layers where your true self lives. In accepting this, you stop dimming your light and begin embracing the rare and beautiful gift of seeing the world and yourself in a way that only a spiritually awakened heart can. 5. You've always felt different. You've always felt different, carrying a subtle but persistent awareness that your inner world does not move in the same rhythm as the people around you. Not because you are superior, but because your perception, your sensitivity, and your inner purpose simply operate on a deeper, more introspective level. This quiet otherness feels like a soft vibration beneath your daily life, a knowing that you see, feel, and interpret experiences with a level of intensity that most people never reach. And although you may not have had the words for it, this difference has followed you for years, shaping how you connect, how you think, and how you move through the world. You notice details that others overlook. You sense emotions before anyone speaks them, and you absorb the atmosphere of a room in seconds. This is not an accident, but one of the earliest signs of a gifted soul who is wired for depth, awareness, and spiritual development. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And deep down, you've always known there is a version of you that doesn't match the surface-level expectations that society pushes onto everyone. Yet when this difference is misunderstood, neglected, or suppressed, it turns inward and becomes a quiet ache, making you feel detached from others, as if you are physically present but emotionally distant, drifting through your own life like a silent observer watching everything but belonging nowhere. You may have tried to blend in, to dim your inner brilliance, or to pretend that you don't feel life as intensely as you do. But every time you do that, you create a split inside yourself, a gap between who you are and who you think you must be to be accepted. This inner conflict can make you feel like you are fading out of your own existence, living in a ghost-like state where you move, speak, and function, yet something essential within you remains unseen, unexpressed, or unacknowledged. But the truth is that this difference, this otherness, is not a flaw. It is the spiritual sensitivity that has always guided your growth, your insight, and your connection to something larger than the physical world. It shows up as intuition, emotional depth, heightened awareness, and a natural desire to understand life at its core rather than its surface. And while this sensitivity sometimes leads to loneliness or misunderstanding, it is also the source of your greatest strength, your spiritual wisdom, and your ability to recognize truths that others are not ready to see. You were never meant to move through life on a shallow frequency. Your soul was designed to feel deeply, to question sincerely, and to evolve through experiences that awaken you rather than numb you. So instead of resisting this inner difference, allow it to guide you toward the spaces, people, and experiences that honor your nature. Your otherness is a compass, not a curse. It is the beginning of your authenticity, the core of your spirituality, and the spark that pushes you toward a life lived consciously instead of automatically. And when you finally embrace the depth you carry, you stop living like a shadow in your own life and begin returning to yourself with clarity, confidence, and purpose. If you've always felt different and sense there's a deeper purpose behind it, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's embrace our uniqueness together and awaken our true spiritual gifts. 6. You see potential in others, but doubt your own. You see potential in others so clearly, almost effortlessly, as if your mind is wired to recognize greatness before it even fully forms. Yet when you turn that gaze inward, everything becomes blurry, uncertain, or strangely out of reach. And this contradiction often leaves you feeling like you're living beneath your true capabilities. You can look at someone struggling and instantly notice their hidden strength, their untapped brilliance, the qualities they have not yet learned to trust. And you speak to them with clarity and conviction because you genuinely believe in what they can become. But when it comes to your own path, your own gifts feel vague or undefined, as if they are too big, too complex, or too overwhelming for you to claim. This is why you hesitate, overthink, or even freeze, not because you lack ability, but because the vastness of your inner vision intimidates you in ways other people will never understand. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." And that is exactly where your struggle begins. Your heart knows you are capable of more, yet your mind doubts whether you're ready to step into the fullness of that truth. Gifted people often face this paradox. They carry a deep intuitive sensitivity that allows them to see potential everywhere except in themselves, because their inner standards are impossibly high, and nothing they do ever feels enough compared to the future they imagine. You feel this tension daily, the sense that your life is meant to be bigger, deeper, more aligned. but you're unsure how to get there. Unsure how to trust the greatness you can sense but not fully touch. You may even encourage others with confidence because supporting someone else feels safe, while believing in yourself feels risky, as if stepping into your potential could expose you to judgment, failure, or expectations you fear you won't meet. Yet this ability to see what others cannot is not random. It is a reflection of your own spiritual wisdom. The same inner light you use to uplift others shining inside you, waiting to be recognized instead of dismissed. The only difference is that you allow other people's greatness to exist, but you question your own. You forget that the clarity you offer others is a mirror of the clarity you possess. You overlook the fact that the potential you sense in others is actually a projection of the potential within you. And the more you ignore your gifts, the heavier your inner conflict becomes, creating that quiet sense of living below your purpose, as if you are a few steps behind the life that truly belongs to you. Deep down, you already know that your hesitation is not weakness. It is the weight of an unlived life, the pressure of dreams you haven't stepped into yet, the call of a future self you have not allowed yourself to trust. You were never meant to stay small. The vision inside you feels large because you are large. The path feels overwhelming because you are aligned with something greater than you realize. And the same encouragement you offer others so naturally is the exact medicine you need to give yourself. The courage to believe in your own potential with the same conviction you extend to everyone else. 7. You outgrow people and environments quickly. You outgrow people and environments quickly because your inner world evolves at a pace most around you cannot follow. And when your spirit expands this rapidly, the spaces, relationships, and routines that once felt comforting begin to feel tight, like clothing 2 sizes too small. What used to energize you now leaves you restless, and conversations that once felt meaningful now fall flat because your mind and heart crave depth, honesty, and alignment. This shift isn't arrogance or impatience. It's the natural consequence of a soul moving through a powerful stage of transformation, where your spirituality rises and your sense of self becomes sharper, clearer, and more awakened. You start noticing that the environments you once accepted no longer match your inner frequency, and staying in them begins to feel like forcing your spirit into a box it has already broken open from. As this rapid inner evolution unfolds, you may look around and realize you've moved forward while others remain exactly where they were. And that difference in pace quietly stretches the connections between you. People you loved may suddenly feel unfamiliar, not because anything dramatic happened, but because you are no longer meeting them at the same emotional or spiritual level. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when you're gifted with accelerated growth, every part of your life starts to reconfigure around that truth. The more you awaken, the more the old versions of yourself dissolve, and the more you feel the subtle tension of being called into a life that's bigger than the one you're trying to hold together. Staying connected to people and environments you've outgrown becomes exhausting because your future self is pulling you forward while your current surroundings keep pulling you backward. This is when fragmentation begins, when parts of you start stretching in opposite directions. You feel guilty for drifting away, yet suffocated when you try to stay. You want to remain loyal to the past, yet your inner voice keeps whispering that your next chapter requires a different kind of space, energy, and truth. This internal friction grows stronger the more you try to silence it, creating emotional fatigue, spiritual heaviness, or a sense of being out of place, even in familiar settings. You may notice your intuition becoming louder, urging you to honor the evolution happening within, reminding you that your growth is not a betrayal of others, but a commitment to yourself. What hurts most is not the outgrowing, it's the resistance. When you suppress your growth just to maintain connection, when you dim your light to avoid standing out, when you pretend to fit where you no longer belong, you end up abandoning the very self you are becoming. And that abandonment creates a deeper loneliness than walking away ever could. You feel disconnected, not because you're lost, but because you're staying somewhere your soul has already left. You feel fragmented because every time you shrink to keep the peace, you divide yourself into pieces to be who others need instead of who you truly are. The environments that once felt safe begin to feel like barriers, and you realize that your spirit can no longer breathe in spaces built for a smaller version of you. Yet this pattern, outgrowing people and environments quickly, isn't a flaw. It's evidence of a consciousness rising, a spiritual awakening unfolding, and a destiny calling you into higher alignment. You are not breaking connections. You are breaking limits. You are not abandoning a life that stopped fitting. And the moment you stop denying this truth, your inner world begins to realign. Your energy becomes lighter, and your path becomes clearer, because you finally understand that growth is not something to apologize for, but something to honor. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Keep evolving and attracting growth into your life. Type in the comments, "I am ready to rise beyond my old limits." 8. Your identity is constantly evolving. Your identity is constantly evolving because who you are is not a fixed, frozen idea, but a living process that keeps unfolding as you move through life. Even if no one has ever said this to you, you feel it every time a part of you shifts, expands, or outgrows something you once thought defined you. You experience identity as something fluid and alive, growing with your experiences and tightening when you try to squeeze yourself into a box that was never meant for you. Yet society keeps insisting that you must choose one label, one role, one identity, and remain loyal to it forever, as if your soul were a statue instead of a river. The moment you try to comply with these expectations, you begin to feel a quiet disconnect inside, like you're wearing a mask that hides your true self. This inner tension grows stronger every time you silence your truth just to avoid confusing others or disrupting the version of you they're comfortable with. You might notice this discomfort in subtle ways. The career that once made you proud now feels too small. The relationships that once grounded you now feel misaligned, or the beliefs that once guided you now seem outdated. Even when you sense the need to evolve, fear can still hold you back. Fear of disappointing people, fear of seeming inconsistent, or fear of stepping into the unknown. But you were never meant to stay the same, and every season of your life calls you toward becoming a deeper, truer version of yourself. Real suffering begins when you resist this natural movement, It doesn't come from change itself. It comes from denying your need to transform. Your soul asks for expansion, while the world asks for predictability, and you become stuck between the two. This is where spirituality and spiritual development guide you back to yourself. They remind you that your identity is not supposed to be static. It is meant to reflect your inner growth, your lessons, your healing, and your wisdom. When you stop resisting your evolution, you step out of the version of yourself that no longer fits and return to authenticity. You begin to see that every past identity was not a mistake. It was simply a chapter, not a prison. Allowing yourself to grow does not betray who you were. It honors who you are becoming. And the deeper message in all of this is simple. Give yourself permission to evolve. Release outdated labels without guilt. Trust the quiet pull toward your next chapter, even if others do not understand it. Your identity is not a destination, but a journey of continuous becoming. And every version of you is a meaningful part of your path. 9. You're haunted by the search for meaning. You're haunted by the search for meaning because your inner world refuses to accept a life built on shallow routines, empty conversations, or roles that do not honor your purpose. You feel suffocated the moment something becomes superficial. And it's not because you're difficult. It's because your spirit has always been wired for depth. As Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. And you are someone who constantly looks inward, trying to understand why certain environments drain you, or why certain choices feel wrong even before you can explain them. You sense misalignment instantly. And when it happens, your soul reacts with dissatisfaction, burnout, or quiet restlessness, urging you to stop pretending and return to what feels true. This inner discomfort isn't emotional instability. It's spiritual wisdom, reminding you that your life cannot be reduced to survival or routine. When a job lacks purpose, you feel your energy dimming day by day. When a relationship lacks emotional truth, you feel yourself disconnecting even if everything looks fine on the surface. When a lifestyle lacks meaning, you feel as though you're living someone else's life instead of your own. This sensitivity to meaning is not a flaw, it's a compass. And though the world often tells you to be practical, something in you refuses to abandon depth because your soul knows that settling is a quiet form of dying. Jung described this beautifully when he said, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being." And that is exactly what you're trying to do. Light your own way through a world that often chooses comfort over truth. You've always noticed that when you ignore your purpose, everything inside you begins to malfunction. Your motivation collapses, your emotions tighten, your body grows heavy, and your spirit withdraws. You don't simply get bored, you spiritually dehydrate. Nothing feels satisfying, even if life looks stable from the outside, because something essential within you has gone silent. And when you finally hear that silence, it hurts. It keeps you awake at night. It pushes you to question everything: your work, your choices, your relationships, your direction. This questioning isn't chaos, it's awakening. It's your inner self trying to pull you back into alignment before you drift too far from who you truly are. You want more than comfort. You want connection, resonance, and authenticity. You want relationships where conversations feel alive. You want work that matters. You want a life that feels like you are growing into your potential instead of shrinking into expectations. And although this makes your journey more intense, it also makes it more meaningful. Not everyone feels life this deeply, but you do. Not everyone notices when their soul is starving, but you do. Not everyone is brave enough to seek purpose, but you are. And that is why your restlessness is not a curse, but a calling. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more spiritual wisdom and Carl Jung insights. And if you're still here, comment below. I'm searching for meaning, to remind yourself that your soul's quest has a purpose. Your words help us connect with kindred spirits like you. 10. Your inner growth outpaces your outer life. You've grown so much inside that your current life can no longer contain who you are becoming. And this inner expansion shows up as an ache you cannot ignore, a quiet pressure that follows you through every routine, reminding you that you were meant for something deeper, fuller, and more aligned. Your thoughts stretch far beyond the limits of your daily conversations. Your heart longs for purpose, while the world around you settles for comfort. And your soul keeps whispering that you have outgrown environments, expectations, and versions of yourself that once felt normal. Instead of feeling like potential, this growth begins to feel like heaviness, because you can sense the life inside you that has not yet been lived. You know you are capable of more, but fear, responsibility, and the rules society hands you make you hesitate, pulling you back into patterns that no longer fit. Carl Jung warned that when your inner world evolves faster than your outer reality, the psyche begins to split. And this fracture shows up in the very symptoms you struggle with: burnout that drains your spirit, numbness that dulls your joy, procrastination that makes you question your discipline, and an existential fatigue that settles in your bones even after a full night of sleep. What feels like lack of motivation is actually resistance to a life that no longer matches who you are on the inside. You are not lazy. You are misaligned. Your spirit is refusing to shrink itself back into a shape it has already outgrown. As your spirituality deepens and your spiritual awakening accelerates, your awareness sharpens in ways you can no longer turn off. You begin to see clearly which relationships drain you, which routines suffocate you, and which choices no longer reflect your truth. You notice yourself becoming quieter, not because you have nothing to say, but because small talk feels empty, and your inner world is too rich to be expressed in spaces that lack depth. You crave meaning, healing, creation, and freedom, but your current environment may still demand performance, conformity, and predictability. This clash between the inner self and the outer life creates a tension that follows you everywhere. And yet, the more conscious you become, the harder it is to stay in situations you have long outgrown. Jung once said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and the pain you feel is simply the friction between your soul's evolution and the life you are still living out of habit. You sense that you are no longer motivated by approval, routine, or safety. Instead, you crave alignment, authenticity, and depth. That inner fire that used to feel like potential now feels like pressure, because your soul is trying to move you forward, even while your circumstances hold you in place. But this discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is proof that you are growing faster than your reality can keep up. Many gifted, sensitive, and intuitive individuals experience this exact tension when their inner world matures ahead of their outer choices. You are not behind. You are ahead of your own timeline. The anxiety, exhaustion, and restlessness you feel are simply signals that it is time to step into a life that reflects your true self more honestly. When you begin to make small, courageous choices that align with who you are becoming, setting boundaries, honoring your values, choosing environments that nourish your mind and spirit, the pressure starts to transform into momentum. The burnout softens, the numbness fades, and your energy returns because your inner and outer worlds finally begin to move in the same direction. This is not a punishment, but an invitation to step into the life your soul has been quietly building within you, and to allow your spirituality and spiritual awakening to guide you toward a reality that matches the depth, maturity, and truth of who you really are. At the end of the day, recognizing your gifts is not about ego. It's about awakening to who you truly are. When you understand your inner strength, your sensitivity, your intuition, and your depth, life stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like a path you were meant to walk. As Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your gifts are not accidents. They are signposts pointing you back to your purpose. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming insights on self-discovery, healing, and awakening. Your journey is just beginning, and we're honored to walk it with you.